All right, so thank you all so much for joining us. We are really excited. I'm really excited to have had the opportunity to work with the folks in career services to share this information. We know that internships are a topic that we get a lot of questions about in terms of how can we as an organization have some interns. And then oftentimes I say, I can help with that, but the first thing we need is a position description before we can really move forward in those next steps. And so, and then folks will ask for resources for crafting different internship position descriptions. And so this idea has really been percolating for a couple of years now. So I'm really grateful to the folks from Career Services that are going to share their knowledge with us in the next hour. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to Megan and Riatan to introduce themselves and get us started.
Hi, I'm Megan Patterson, and I am the Internship Connections Coordinator with Career Services.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maria Tate, and I am a career advisor in Career Services, and I'm excited that you all are here today.
All right. So I'm going to get us started. Hopefully this slideshow goes. I don't know if I just, there we go. Okay. So like I said, I'm the Internship Connections Coordinator for Career Services. So really anything and everything related to internships on ISU's campus, I probably have my nose in it in some way. So the first thing I want to talk about is what is an internship and what is not an internship. So an internship, if you look at it on paper, it's a learning experience, right? And there's a couple different names for it. You might hear it as experiential learning, or even a practicum or student teaching kind of falls into that world of where you are actively going out and learning the thing that you've just spent probably years studying in textbooks and in classrooms. But in reality, an internship is so much more than that. It's a networking opportunity, right? It's how you meet people. It's how you expand your professional network and gain opportunities for yourself and others that you know. It's a chance to improve your transferable skills. I'm going to talk about transferable skills here in the next slide and go a little bit more in depth in those, but it's a great way for our students to get better at their professional development. It's a resume builder, because a lot of times our traditional students fresh out of college don't have a lot on their resume, so internships are an incredible way to beef up their resume and make them look more marketable to employers. And really the last thing that it is it's confidence. It's a confidence builder for our students. A lot of our students are coming off of this COVID-19 pandemic and life is just different. So that can have a really big impact on their confidence and their emotional well-being. So internship opportunities help them feel a little bit more comfortable in the professional work environment. An internship is not coffee runs or printing a billion copies of things or cleaning the bathrooms exclusively, right? Because in our jobs, we've all probably worked jobs or currently work jobs where we have to do those things. That's just the job. So maybe your intern does have to do those things, but as long as that's not all that they're doing, then that's fine. It's also not a guarantee of the job. So just keep that in mind when you have an intern. Maybe they're not what you're looking for, moving on. That's okay. You have still provided them with this incredible learning opportunity that we at ISU are really grateful for. So that's a bit of an overview of what an internship is and what it is not. All right, these transferable skills. Riatan could probably tell you too, we live and die by these at Career Services. So these 8 skills are what we are really determined to teach our students here at ISU. Because these are what employers are looking for, regardless of your field or your academic major. These can be transferred over from math to computers to construction. This is what people are looking for. So that being said, and I don't know if anybody wants to pitch in and say, but what is an internship that you're maybe thinking of for your organization? If anybody wants to chime in, you can.
anyone have any ideas? Did you come into this workshop? Okay, I see Rachel, you raised your hand. Go
Hi.
ahead.
My name is Rachel. Hello, everyone. Thank you for hosting this webinar. I'm with the McLean County Museum of History, Director of Volunteers and Interns, and we offer interns cross-departmentally. So our library archives intern, we have a digital media intern, we've got a assistant curator and assistant registrar, very hands-on. We've got a new marketing with Terry Goss-Kinsey's on our board. We're super excited. We've got a marketing. Oh, I have a question. Oh, okay. We have a few internships in our education department, one dealing with public programs and special events, the other dealing with cemetery walk and more historical research based. Basically we get position descriptions, whether they're for credit, not for credit, how many hours per week we're expected. It is on site, mostly experiential learning at the museum. That's why during COVID, it was so tough. We tried the online remote internships during COVID, and working with our database and our artifacts, our collection, it's really, it's vital that the students are on site. So we did a little bit of metadata online database remote work, and it just didn't work out. So we have a bunch, but we're always looking for more opportunities and ways to partner. We've also partnered with internships, not in our town. We partnered with them to kind of get this social justice history tour website going, which is going to be unleashed. So that's just a couple of things we offer.
Thanks so much, Rachel. That was great. You know, a lot of times people think it's a history museum, so you just need history interns. But you just shared with us, right? Like all the different ways, those people that want to do marketing, PR, social media, which I know everyone is looking for those folks, but also those folks that can do research, those folks that can do technology, those folks that want to maybe work with kids outside of formal education system or adult education. So lots of great examples that I see mapped to a few of these different, regardless of where they're at, they're mapping to the transferable skills. Rachel Carpenter, I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, so we do a variety of different types of internships here at the museum, but some of the ones that are new to us is really partnering with professional practice programs at ISU. And so those are really nice because I can work with a very specific faculty member. And, you know, these can be research driven. They can be very targeted at a specific program. And that is super valuable. So we're dipping our toe into that with the psychology department, which maybe is something that people wouldn't typically think about with the Children's Museum. But we need somebody to focus on early childhood education research for us related to some grants. And so this really helps us with grant work. And then it gives those students like actual practice doing activities that they want to do in their professional work as they move out of the education system. And so for us, this is like super mutually beneficial. And those are where I really want to spend my time and effort because for us, again, we're an educational institution. So anytime we're working with anybody, that's employees, that's interns, that's our guests, that's an education opportunity. And so we see all of those as part of the way that we support our community through education. So that's part of it. But then we also have like our innovation station. So we can have people who work with saws and drills and those sorts of things coming in teaching kids, or our art studio. And we work with our art students, education students at the university. So for us, those interns are super valuable. And what I really like is getting those interns to come in and then I can hire out of them. So the onboarding is significantly less if I can hire from my interns versus having to hire fresh meat, I guess.
Thanks so much, Rachel. Again, just a wide variety of disciplines that really could connect, right? Like you said, people maybe didn't think about psychology, but I definitely heard art. I definitely heard technology, thinking about all those folks studying construction management. And I also want to point out, you used the word professional practice. At the end here, we're going to talk a little bit about working with some of the different departments. And so that is another term that is sometimes used by departments for internship. It really varies from department to department, but some are going to call a practicum, an internship, a professional practice, so many different things that all really mean an internship. So maybe we could hear from one more person about your idea that you're coming into the workshop with, thinking about some interns.
Harry, Bill Arbogast from the Prairie Aviation Museum. Our situation is probably on the other end of the spectrum. We have a very small operation with only volunteers, and we're just looking at the possibility of even having an intern. Of course, our unstructured situation, we do not have the various departments as these other museums have. It's kind of like the person that's involved with our museum really touches all the bases. But the possibility of maybe a partnership through one of the other museums for an intern possibility might be something that, maybe we could dream about in the future. So we're just kind of listening in to see how we might fit in.
Oh, okay.
I
Megan.
would add one thing to your list of transferable skills,
Let's hear it.
and that's through my experience in the corporate world, even with professionals, that the first one is always the personal life management skills, which you make the assumption that students at a college level come in with that, but I find that even those that have graduated and come into the working world haven't had all of those skills yet embedded. So that's an area that I'd suggest that it be added to that.
Yes. Okay.
Thanks, Bill.
And examples of that would be, just you show up to work, you know how to dress, you know how to behave yourself, you're not talking to your boyfriend or girlfriend while you're at work, those kinds of things.
I don't feel like that's asking too much, no? All right.
Okay, Megan, you want to keep going?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you all for your input and a lot of great things we're talking about that I'm going to talk about here soon too. And thank you all. And I'm just going to list off some other questions to kind of keep in mind as you're thinking of your interns and thinking about potential interns. As do you have someone in mind to directly supervise your interns? What is your plan for the intern throughout the semester? What goals do you have for the intern? And what are you hoping to teach the intern? What of these 8, or even if you come up with 9 or 10, transferable skills, what do you want them to leave that maybe they didn't have when they got there, but now they do because they had their internship with you? So that's some things to kind of think through and to think for your interns or potential interns. The other, I just want you to know about these 8 skills is we have our interns, of course, you all would evaluate your interns' performance, but they also evaluate themselves based on these 8 skills. And then they also evaluate where they did their internship at on these 8 skills if they learned in each of these areas at the end of the semester. And then we collect that data just to see, okay, so they had this positive experience, they felt like they learned here or needed some work here, because data is the best way to keep track of those things. So we live and die by the transferable skills from these. So recruitment, this is a biggie because if you don't have interns, it's like, okay, where do I start? Hire Redbird is our job and internship posting platform. This is where you can go to find interns or even full-time employees. It's open to current ISU students and alumni. So if you're looking to reach that population, that is definitely the place to go. And I believe Harriet sent the how to get there in the email that she sent out to everybody. But if anybody needs help with that, please let me know. Career advisors. Maria Tan is a career advisor. She meets with students all day, every day. I see her walking past my office going with students. So they are a great resource if you're looking to connect directly with students. I also see students. My only area is internships. So students come to me if they're looking specifically for an internship. So just the other day, I had a student come in looking for an internship in some type of museum type of thing. So Rachel, you saying that, I just wrote your name down because now I can now email that student, right? And be like, hey, I just heard about this.
Send her away, please.
What was that?
I said, please send her our way and thank you.
Absolutely, yeah. And see, and that's the big, like my title is Internship Connections Coordinator. And so like just building those spots, or like, you know, Rich Carpenter, you mentioned psychology. I would not have thought psych, but I see students who are interested in a psych internship. And now I'm going to write your name down. Like, okay, here's another one. So I have this big spreadsheet that the students here have all the opportunities, whether close by, nearby, remote, whatever, because I want them to get the internship that they're looking for. So career services in general is a great resource. Yes, Rachel?
Well, I was just going to wonder if you could drop your email in the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll do that once I'm like done talking, because I can like.
I'm sorry. Sorry, everybody.
Right. You're totally fine. I'm here to get to know each one of you individually and work with you to help you recruit interns, and then work with those interns to make sure that they are learning the 8 transferable skills that they need to learn. But and I think Richard Carpenter mentioned this earlier with the faculty, having a specific faculty member. That's huge, especially if you're looking for that type of student. And I have a huge list of all of the faculty who oversee each academic major at ISU. So if you're like, okay, I know I need a marketing intern. I'm not a marketing expert, but I need a marketing intern. Well, the faculty is the marketing expert. So, and myself, I'm not an expert in those fields either. So I rely a lot on the faculty as far as like, would this internship work, would it not? If you're looking to offer academic credit for your internship, which a lot of students really want, the faculty are who you want to work with for that, because you guys are the experts in whatever you oversee. They're the experts in that academic field. I just put you together and let you do your thing. But in that same realm, people don't always think of this, but registered student organizations, those are organizations on campus that I like to say passionate students are involved in. These are students who are involved on campus. So if you're looking for that marketing student and you want that marketing student that really cares, maybe they're the treasurer of the marketing club on campus. You know what I mean? So we have that available, and I can send that link out to everybody if it's not in the link that Harriet sent out. And like, there's over 400 of them on campus. So what you're looking for, we probably have a club for it, which is pretty cool. Of course, career fairs and events, right? We're career services. So of course we got to talk about the career fairs and events. We have a virtual career fair coming up. Harriet, I believe, sent the link for our events. We also have an event this Wednesday at 3:30, which is free for employers. If anybody is interested in attending that, I highly recommend it. It's a EDI, so Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Expo. So it should be pretty good. But that is kind of my best suggestions as far as recruiting interns, high quality interns. Maybe somebody else has something they'd like to share as far as how they found their intern.
Hey, Megan, can I just make a comment? I know that ISU is kind of a beast to navigate. And it really is. I have so much empathy for what it means to be a community organization trying to navigate ISU. And you're like, I just want to intern. That's all. And actually, I'm trying to think let's see, 17 years ago, I was a volunteer, a coordinator and fundraiser for a community-based organization looking for a marketing intern at ISU. And that experience still resonates with me because I remember sending some emails and no one ever replied to me. 17 years later, I remember that no one at ISU replied to those emails. And so I just have a lot of empathy, and there isn't one easy way to just like, okay, we just do this and then we have a bunch of interns. Boy, do I wish there was. But please know that with Hire a Redbird, with building these relationships with the folks in career services, and with your relationship with the Center for Civic Engagement, Together, we're all doing as much as we can to get the word out there. So if you send me something about an internship, I guarantee you 100% I'm sending it on to Megan. And so you may not know the folks over in career, but I'm passing that on, which means then Megan is spreading it to all those faculty internship coordinators, because I don't know all the faculty internship coordinators. But similarly, there may be some faculty I know where I'm going to say, oh, you know, this person teaches this class. And so they may know some students interested. And so we just kind of use this web of networking at ISU to try and promote your internships as much as possible.
Yeah. And I'm just gonna drag it over just real quick so everybody can see. This is what your Hire Redbird page would look like. After you set it up, it's free to register, like get on Hire Redbird, like that doesn't cost you any money. And then you can get on there. Somebody from Career Services approves it just to make sure everybody who is on it is a verified organization. And then you have the range to play around on here. I think the easiest way to probably create this posting is just to create job posting on their helpful links. And then this is where you can put in your internship posting that you're looking to share. This is what our this is the registered student organization site that I talked about with over 400 clubs. So like if I look at marketing, we have American marketing, so sports marketing, Department of Marketing, like we have a wide range of avenues to find students that way. And then of course our events page, this is all stuff that Harriet sent you guys, but these are our events that we have this semester, and we'll have more come the fall as well. But that is kind of an overview for that. And move on to the next slide if we're all good with recruitment. Okay, crafting an internship posting. So this is where it gets fun because you have your posting is however you want it to be. These are just recommendations. And the same thing we tell students when they come in for resumes, like this is what we recommend, but at the end of the day, it's whatever you want to have your posting be. To create that posting, I recommend working with those who know the position best. Like I mentioned earlier, if you're not a marketing person, maybe you do have a marketing person that is going to oversee the intern, work with that person to come up with the posting because they know the area the best. You want to keep it organized, but exciting, but honest. So try to hit all three of those areas because you want to draw them in, but you want to keep it honest and you don't want it to be too much for them. Your wording is important. I recommend saying things like you and we and our, just to make it a bit more personal and kind of just draws them in a little bit more. Harriet set out a, well, it looks like this. I'll just pull it over for you guys to kind of see. But this is really in depth. It's quite the read. I wrote it, so I know it's quite the read. But this is what you can use when you're putting yours together. Again, these are recommendations. If you're happy with what you got and it's pulling interns in, cool. Keep at it. But if you want to use this, you absolutely can. I like to break it up into kind of 6 sections when talking through internship postings. So the nitty gritty is what I call it. So this is what they need to know. If I'm a marketing student and this job is looking for history students, or this internship's looking for history students, okay, that's not for me. Move on. Like, or if I need to stay in the area because of my financial needs and this job is in Chicago, okay, that's not for me. Like, just kind of keeps things moving for them. So that is what that is. The second part, introduction, introducing what your company is. This is selling them. So, okay, I'm a marketing, this is a marketing internship. Why should I be interested? Something short and sweet to kind of draw them in is what your introduction can be. Now it's different from the position. So you wouldn't have, on part 3, you wouldn't have the same position for marketing as you would for history because they're 2 different realms of things. And so your introduction can be the same because that's your company, but you want the position to be different because that's what you're looking for from those interns, from those applicants. Part 4, the duties. So what they're going to be doing. I don't recommend saying job duties, but say what you'll do. Because like I mentioned earlier, we are. rather than like, this is what you're doing, like, this is what you'll do, to help them envision themselves in that role. So just laying out what they're going to be doing in a lot of you might already know this, but a little secret for you guys, when students come in for their resume reviews, we tell them, hey, look at that job posting and make yourself look like that. Use their verbs, use their adjectives, create your experience and your knowledge and turn it into what they're looking for. So when you're writing these, be thinking of that. Look, like, I want somebody with these skills and these attributes, because they're going to be thinking, okay, do I have those and how can I convey that to you guys? Requirements. Again, same thing. You might not want to say job requirements. You might say what we're looking for. Looking for communication skills. Maybe you need an intern with a second language proficiency. Or if you're in the tech world, like when I see the tech internship records come through, it looks like a different language to me because I'm like, I don't even know what that is, but I know that our IT people do. So if you're looking for a specific computer function, like that's where you would put that. So that way the intern's like, oh yeah, I took a class on that, I can do that. So that's where you could put that. Benefits. Now you might be saying like, okay, internship, I can only offer so much to an intern. But you might not even realize what you're offering to them. Do you have a recognition program? Do you have opportunities for employment post-graduation? That's a big pull. Do you have any certifications or anything like that that they can add to their resume? Because again, they're looking to build their resume from this experience. Or can you even, maybe you have workplace potlucks. People love that, right? People love food. So anything you can do to kind of draw the student in. And at the bottom of this is the top part all put together. And this is what that internship posting will look like. Nothing too crazy, but nice and organized, keeps it exciting, and it's honest. So you're welcome to use that as an example when you're putting together your job posting, your internship posting. So now you're thinking, okay, we've talked about recruitment, we've got a job posting made. How are we going to afford this if we decide to pay the intern? And I'm going to pass it off to Maria now for that.
Okay. Well, before I get into what I was going to talk about, I just wanted to see, did anybody have any questions or response? Because I know it's just a lot, just thinking about crafting before we move forward. Any questions or comments in terms of crafting a posting? Everybody good? Okay. Well, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the value of paid internships and really, I think overall the value of an internship experience. Megan did a great job earlier about talking about, the NAICS competencies and how this fits into our work. As an advisor, I meet with students every single day on various topics. Even just this morning, I met with a student who is graduating in the fall and she was just like, I'm contemplating an internship, like I've heard about it, right? Because when they get to campus, I feel that they know that they need to do it, but they're even students, you are trying to figure out how to recruit them and they're just trying to figure out how to find you. And so that's really, the purpose, Megan's really where she comes in, and even just our whole staff and working to make sure that we're connecting students with opportunities. And so, I will just kind of just restate this. Megan has already talked about this, but just that internship experience is highly valued. And so we're constantly encouraging students to seek out opportunities. And then also that we know when students are looking for their first job after college, how important having internship experience is. And you can go to the next point. You can pull them all up, in fact, if you want to. Thank you, Megan. I wanted to share a little bit the transferable skills that you all saw earlier is from NACE, the National Association for Colleges and Employers. And that's where we get a lot of our research from an advising standpoint and just overall. And they do a lot of research about internships. And I had read a 2018 article that talked about students' perceptions of their most meaningful internship experiences. And I thought that it would be fitting to share that with you all and what students found. So in that particular survey, they found that students most most meaningful internship experiences came from working with employers who provided feedback, allowed them to get to know others in the organization, and had a supervisor or colleague who took a personal interest in them. And so I think that is very fitting to talk about that now as we're thinking about you all crafting internship positions, or maybe you had an intern in the past and you just want to, enhance your internship experience. I think that it's important to listen to students and what they're looking for. Megan talked earlier a lot about, internship experience really being an experiential learning opportunity. And I think I can tell, having had personal experiences with internships and observed students in internships, when they don't have that opportunity to really learn, it's not helpful for them. And so we're encouraging them to get an internship experience, but we want it to be meaningful. And so I just want to reiterate that. Megan already did a great job of talking about that, but I just want to reiterate that because that's a lot of my conversations with students. Other research, and in fact, I am going to send to Harry and she's going to send out to you all an article that we have from NACE, a very recent article, and it's called Paid Internships, Moving Toward Greater Equity and Setting Pay. And I think that this is just such it's a very brief article, but it's very good just getting us to start thinking about, what is the purpose and how does paid internships fit into this whole conversation about internships? And one thing that they found in this particular study, like I said, NACE has been doing this research about paid internships for a while. But one of the things that they found was that students who had paid internships were more likely to have success early on in their career in the form of having more job offers, even having a higher starting salary. And I thought that's really interesting. And so I just encourage you all to really think about your processes. I know before I came into higher ed, I was really heavily focused on social services and had done a little bit of work in social services. And so I recognized that where's the money going to come from? I'm very cognizant of that. But then I'm also working with students and I see how frustrating it can be when they know they need to seek out an internship experience, but then they need to take an entire summer off of not being paid. And not everyone can do that. And so I just want to encourage you all, I would encourage you all to read the article. I think it has some really great insight as you're thinking about this. And really, I think the article helps us see how a lack of paid internships is really like an equity and access issue. And so wanting to widen up the pool so that we can, one thing that the article states that I thought was really good was that when we increase the amount of paid internships, that it actually widens up the pool of applicants that you get for your internships, because it includes people, not just the people who can afford to take, a summer or a semester off to do an internship. So I just want to mention that. And then my one last point that I want to make here, just an actionable step. This is related to internships, but more so like the selection and hiring process. And really, I would encourage you all to evaluate your process, your internship process, to see, is it equitable? Is it inclusionary versus exclusionary? And I think that in our conversations that we've been having in our office, and I think also just over the last 2 years, and we've been talking and throwing this word out there, right? Equity and access and all that good stuff. And it sounds good when we write it down, but what does that really look like when we're crafting internship positions, when we're hiring interns, interviewing them, all of that good stuff. And so just want to put that kind of like an actionable step about everything that we're talking about. And I think one way that we can really do that is evaluating how we hire our interns. And so, like I said, you all will have the article in your inbox so that you can browse that. And I'm more than happy to serve as a resource. As Megan was saying, I'm really always excited to connect with employers, because in meeting with students, now I'm able to make that connection from, it doesn't feel so scary when I'm referring them and I'm putting them on an email with a student or something like that. It doesn't feel as scary when we can kind of serve as that intermediary between you all and students. And, we're happy to do that.
Hey, Mariatin, will you just add one comment just to talk about the new initiative where with Career Services offering some funding to students
Yes.
who are doing unpaid internships?
Yes, absolutely.
Megan talks about her resources for paid internships.
Yes, I can. And I will go very briefly on this. And Megan is definitely the expert in this area. But we have the EDI grant, and this is a really amazing opportunity for students, specifically those students who are in unpaid internships, where they actually receive a stipend for working so many hours. Megan knows this better than I, but they can actually receive a stipend. There's some paperwork and things that they have to do in order for that to happen. But it has literally, I think at this point, Megan, you said that we've helped over 30 students who have had unpaid internship who have been able to now receive a stipend. And this just, it's incredible. Even some of our very own students who work in career services, and I can tell you firsthand how impactful that is to have that financial pressure taken off just by having that stipend. So yeah, and maybe you know more than I in terms of the logistics of it.
Oh, yes. The EDI grant is definitely my favorite thing about my job because it has made such an impact. And so essentially, like Miriam said, it's for unpaid internships. Really, the student does the grunt work. The employer wouldn't have to do a whole lot of work with it, but the student applies, they have to meet certain qualifications, and then they can receive up to $4,000 a semester for their unpaid internship, which is huge. We have ran through that money. We barely marketed this grant and we had over 100 students apply. So the money flew away. That being said, though, we keep getting emails of like, hey, more money, here you go, spend it. And so more and more students from that list that originally were rejected are getting that funding for their internship, which is just a beautiful, beautiful thing. At this time, we emptied our piggy bank of the EDI grant, but we're hoping that with how valuable it was and the data that we're pulling from it, we're having students talk about their experience and how impactful that money was for them. We're hoping to keep convincing the state to keep feeding that piggy bank a little bit because it's a huge, especially for the social services field that cannot always offer paid internships. The EDI grant is kind of a way to around that, where the employer can keep providing these amazing learning opportunities for students, and the student doesn't have to worry about if they can eat that night because they got the stipend. As long as they successfully complete that their internship, the money stays with them. They get the money at the start of the semester. As long as they do everything they need to do throughout, they don't have to worry about it getting taken away. It goes into their student account. The money part's kind of funky, but it's intentionally given to them at the beginning, so that way they can afford to live throughout their internship.
So maybe it's not a whole lot of work that the employers have to do. It's not a whole lot of work on them.
Nope, all the employer has to do is confirm that the internship is real. That's it. So there's a letter of intent that they submit saying, yes, this intern, and it was unpaid. The site does have to confirm it was an unpaid internship because I wouldn't hope that our students would do that, but there's a potential of them applying and then having a paid internship or no internship at all. So that's the way that we check that.
Oh, Jess, I see that you have a question.
So unfortunately, I'm coming with some background. So when we talk about internship today, I'm assuming we're talking about what I would call transcribable experiences, meaning they're going through ISU and it's going to show up on their transcript, which I think if we're talking about the equity issue here too, we should also be forthright and explain that there's a cost to students on that. So if they are doing an unpaid internship, they're actually getting even less, right? So just throwing that out there as and I'm coming from an agency which we would probably have to do an unpaid because of budget, but at least people being aware that there is an additional cost. And I'm going to use that as an argument when I talk to my boss later today.
Thank you for that point.
That's right.
Thank you, Jess, because yes, when students register for an internship, they're paying for those credit hours just like they would for a class, which is something we hear about from students often is, I need to do this internship and it's unpaid and I'm paying for it. So it's very complicated.
It is.
Yeah, I wish I was in the position to explain that one, but that's where we're at. But hopefully the EDI grant does help in some way because they can spend that $4,000 on whatever. I've had students spend it on tires for their cars because they do so much traveling or pay for the tuition. So the grant itself was pretty amazing for that. There is another avenue I'm going to talk about, and that is another grant. So we have two separate grants that we're working with. We have the EDI grant, which is currently empty, but that is just for unpaid internships. This grant here, ICWSP, is for paid internships only. So it's the Illinois Cooperative Work Study Program grant. And essentially, like it says here, if you are able to pay your intern anything, now that can be hourly, that can be a stipend, that can be minimum wage, that can be more than minimum wage, that can be less than minimum wage. If you're able to pay them anything, you can participate in this grant. So if you are a for-profit organization, you can get up to 40% of the intern's wages back at the end of the semester. If you're not for profit, you can get 50% back. So if you give them a $2,000 stipend, you can get $1,000 back if you're a not for profit, which is pretty sweet. And it's pretty easy to participate in. Wendy Long, I saw your name in here. You're probably like, oh no, the secret's out. So all you have to do is send a letter of intent, and then you're set for the fiscal year. And I walk you through all of this. If you're interested, you have to email me. I send you the letter of intent sample. You fill it out, send it back to me. You get put on my email list. And at that point, you get emails of like, okay, what to do next. Really, your work comes at the end of the semester when you have to submit a couple forms, and then you have to send your pay stubs in. And then that goes through our grant people who like to look at numbers, bless their hearts. And then it all gets processed, and a nice pretty check comes back to you for the interns that you paid for that semester. So that's something to kind of think over and have in your minds. Some caveats. First thing, the intern or interns have to be undergraduate students. Unfortunately, this is not available to graduate students. But if your intern is an undergraduate student and they are a resident of Illinois, because this is a state of Illinois funded grant, they want to make sure that it's residents of Illinois that are benefiting from it. So those are the two things to know with it. And another thing, it is subject to the availability of grant funding. We all know the state of Illinois and how that can be. So far, so good. This fiscal year, we're set. So if you want to go ahead and email me, start participating, I have money I need to get rid of. So please shoot me an email with the letter of intent, and then I can work you through how to sign up for the rest. Even if you don't have an intern right now, if you're still interested and just want to have your name on my list, please let me know, and we can definitely get to that. But at the beginning of the fiscal year, which is like the end of the summer, they just give us some money and say, you need to spend this. If we don't spend it, then that doesn't, like, we might not get as much back the next year. So of course we wouldn't spend it all. And I know there are employers out there that would love the financial help. So if you're interested, please let me know. This is an amazing grant that I'm a big fan of. So.
Rachel, I see your hands up.
Just really quick one to give a shout out. Our museum, we took that opportunity in 2020, that's hilarious. In spring and summer of 2020, I think that this grant funded 50% of, well, we were reimbursed 50% as a nonprofit for, I believe, 5 or 6 interns. And so we really appreciated that. The one thing that we don't have our interns fill out W-9s, and I saw in the fine print that the W-9 is required. Is there some way I could get you is that absolutely required, or is it something I could get you hours and our like financial documents of them being paid? Or I know we could work that out probably, but
we can talk. Yeah, we can definitely talk.
I'm interested.
Great, I love to hear that. Yes, I am willing to help. However, that's kind of above me. I'd have to talk to my director, but like also, I am always happy to help people get signed up for this grant. If we have to kind of finesse things, then we finesse things. But I love to hear that you participated in it. I vaguely remember a student, I think from you guys, that was a graduate student, so you didn't get to do that, but that was like at the beginning of when we started. So, but yeah, I'm so happy to hear that and would love more people to jump on this train. So thank you. Any other questions on the ICWSP grant?
Megan, I want to reiterate or make sure I heard you properly. You still have money for this fiscal year through June 30th.
Yeah.
So if someone is already hosting an intern that they're already paying, then they should definitely be talking to you.
Yes.
Is it possible that they're hosting an unpaid intern, but they're like, wait a minute, like, you know, maybe we can do something creative, or maybe folks are thinking about their summer interns right now. Basically, like, everyone should just talk to you. They just need to email you because you still have money that you need to expend by June 30th.
Correct. And I love that question of maybe you're not paying them right now, but maybe you want to pay them, maybe they're doing great or whatever, however you want to approach that. Yeah, we can certainly help you out. There's no minimum. So yeah, great. Thank you. Pass it to Harriet.
Okay, so we've got about 14 minutes left. So I'm just going to talk in a little bit detail about what it means to supervise interns. So one of the things that the language that Megan has been using is your role as an educator. And I just really want to emphasize that bringing this idea of the teacher and the mentor and the co-educator role that you get to play in students' lives. And I say that in a way that's not like, oh, great, now in addition to everything else I'm doing, I also need to be an educator of Illinois State students. I don't want to frame it in that way, but that students, the role of the internship is designed as an educational experience. And so in that way, your role as a supervisor is very important, and students really do value the relationship that they get to build with their internship supervisor and what they get to learn from their supervisor based on the work history and the plethora of experiences that you all have. So first, I do want to talk about working with the academic departments to say that it is going to vary. And you all may have had some of those experiences. We continue to hear regularly that social work is the gold standard of internship supervision. And so partly because of accreditation requirements, they have a very specific procedure and they have very specific paperwork that some of you may have experienced before that lays everything out very clearly, and they have dedicated staff for internship supervision. And that is not the case in every department. That who is coordinating internships in each academic unit is really going to vary. It could be the academic advisor, it could be a dedicated faculty member, it could be a rotation within the department. And so I just have to be honest with you all, and that you may have uneven experiences at Illinois State. And so just being aware of that, and that's where in some cases, you may be getting paperwork and direct communication from someone in the academic department, whereas in other cases, your communication may go directly through the students. Just as a point of information, we really encourage, we think it's a very smart practice for the academic units to establish some line of communication with the internship sites, particularly if something is not going well, that they know who can I talk to in XYZ department to deal with the students' underperformance or behavioral issues, those kinds of things. So that is something that we are pushing, the Center for Civic Engagement, Career Services, right? We really encourage that on the academic units to have that line of communication, but that isn't always the case. And so just being mindful that you may have different experiences. We cannot stress enough the role of communication and with the intern, and particularly during that onboarding process. We've gotten lots of feedback from folks about their experiences working with all students, all traditional age students these days, in terms of preparing them for how they are expected to communicate with you, how you will be communicating with them. And so today's students, and not just students, many people do not want to use the telephone. And so and so I would even go as far as to say, if using the telephone is a regular requirement of the internship, that you should probably just put that in the job description, so that people really understand what they're getting into. And that, you know, even what are your expectations for, I'm sick, I can't make it. Do you want them to email you? Do you want them to call the office? Are you willing to give out your phone number and say, just text me for some of these, you know, small kinds of communications, but don't text me about everything. And so communication is just one of those areas that we really hear a lot about, in terms of something that students need to understand what's expected of them, but it's something that as supervisors, we think about what we want from our students, so that those expectations are laid out really clearly, but then you also have the opportunity to give them feedback about their communication, because not everything can be a text message. And so just helping our students, and this is one of those roles, as simple as it sounds, but such an important supervisory educational role as we're preparing our students to enter the full-time professional workspace. Other things to think about when you're supervising interns is what does that onboarding or orientation look like? And there's a lot of value in putting time into that, sort of this idea of when we invest up front, then we get really great results the rest of the semester. And I certainly understand, I've been in that situation where you're like, oh my gosh, I have my intern starting next week. I got to get this figured out. I got to spend time orienting them, or it takes a lot of time in that first couple of weeks. You're really hands-on with them as you're orienting and onboarding them. And it's so time intensive, but then it really pays off because you can back off and they really can function more independently, and they understand their expectations. They fully understand their duties, and they understand some of those logistical things like, where is the bathroom, or you know, what are your expectations if I have a question, those kinds of things. We do recommend some kind of weekly or bi-weekly status meeting, and that could be as short as 15 minutes, but it creates that space for the intern to reflect on what they're doing, to update you on what they're doing, and to ask questions. I always tell my interns, worst case scenario, we have this meeting every week. So if you need things from me, you have emailed me, I have not responded to your email, I guarantee by the time we meet, then we will use that time to get you what you need or troubleshoot this issue that you're having with. The other practice that we encourage, if time allows, is an opportunity to participate in staff meetings, or at least observe maybe 1 or 2 staff meetings. They may not have that much to contribute, but it's a really great learning experience for them to get to see what does it look like when the whole team comes together, to make decisions, to update each other, to plan, those kinds of things. As well as an opportunity to do short, 20, 30-minute informational interviews or meeting with other people in the organization. That helps them to get a sense of how the whole organization fits together, right? One person may be doing X and the other person is doing Y and the next person is doing Z. We all have distinct duties and responsibilities, but students love learning about folks' backgrounds, right? What did you study? Where have you worked? How did you end up here? Because we all have great stories of our career evolution and what we've learned along the way. But also it helps students to see in a big picture sense how each individual role contributes to the collective goals and mission of the organization. I'm going to stop there and just open it up in our last 5 minutes. Thoughts, feelings, questions folks have. Yeah, Rachel Carpenter.
So a couple. One, I know that at this point, like I won't take on an intern if I can't communicate directly with the internship supervisor. So like when I do the interview, if I try to call and I don't get communication, even if that student is going to be really good, I don't move forward because that's not going to be a healthy relationship. And so that's one of those things like I wish faculty knew that. We're making decisions based on them as well as the student. And so that's really important for us. And then specifically related to like some of the education, you know, the clarity of whether or not internships should or should not be paid, especially within the education department, is not clear. And there are rules related to that. And so like we blanket don't pay because it was so unclear. And so that's one of those things, if things could be a little bit more clear, especially related to the education department, that would be wonderful. What are the rules related to paying interns and not for those sorts of experiences? And then the last thing that has been interesting is I've been seeing a lot more like expectations related to projects in internships, which is fantastic. I love students to have projects, but the expectations are clearly articulated to the students, but that doesn't always end up getting clearly articulated to us. And it would be really helpful if there was a way, you know, if it's like consistent in a department, like what is it? And could we have access to those things? Is there a rubric? You know, things like that, so that we can really, you know, help assist those students to meet those expectations. But it can also help us decide if we can, you know, do I have the capacity to take on one intern or 4 interns based on the projects that they're going to have and how much I need to be putting in to their work. So I guess those sorts of things, again, communication is so important and really important for us. But those are some things that it would be really helpful if the university had that would be really valuable, and I think a value add and better serve the students when they're coming into our spaces.
Rachel, I really appreciate that feedback. And I do totally agree with you. And I can tell you what we are trying to do, the center as well as peer services, we like a nudging strategy is helpful. And so what is getting ready to come up on the Center for Civic Engagement's website is 2 web pages, one for community organizations, much of which is everything you heard today, just organized in website form. That's the same resources, but then a counter website that is a faculty resource, faculty academic unit resource that talks about what does it mean, you know, to have an intern. We have some of those smart practices. Have a point of contact that the site knows who they can talk to. Have your expectations, right? If there are certain learning outcomes that you expect your students to get, it's really important that you communicate that to the organization that is coaching your student through the entire experience to achieve those outcomes. So I hear you, and please know that we are nudging on that and we will continue to nudge on that. There may even be an opportunity for career services to convene all the internship coordinators in the future and do further nudging. And then I just want to say, I heard what you're saying about College of Education. That's something I can definitely look into to learn about and see what we can do for folks with education students.
And I guess the only other thing, you used to do those like lunch and learn sort of things where we would get to meet folks from different departments. And I have found like really fabulous partners through those. And we've developed longstanding like regular interns that come, you know, and partnership with these folks, or regular volunteers. I mean, it covers the gambit. I would love to see those again. I know we stopped them, of course, because pandemic and all of that. But those were lovely, you know, speed dating sort of experiences with faculty who were really interested in working with community partners. And so I just wanted to say, like, if we can do that again, I'm like 100% on board.
Yes, absolutely. And Megan Patterson, let's make a note. We can do that in the fall. We can plan that into our fall program schedule, no problem. So, and we can make it focused on like internship networking specifically. So that is done. Date TBD. And I know we're at 12:01 now, but any folks want to add any other comments, questions, thoughts that they have?
I had a quick one, and I hope that it may have been something that you already covered, but just timelines. I run into a lot of problems with when do we need to get the ball rolling for certain departments, or is there a place where all of that is organized? And then also for the grant opportunities, what are the timelines that we need to have applied for those things?
Megan, do you want to comment on the grant? What are your timelines?
Yes, so for the grant, I kind of mentioned earlier, like you could set it up today and then just get the rest of, if you wanted to. But if, you know, there's really no, like there are deadlines, like Wendy Long is probably still in this, and it's like, Megan, you're emailing all the time about get this in by this time. I have deadlines for the paperwork, so that way I have time to get it all organized and sent off. But I try to give as much time as possible for you to get those forms and those papers in at least a couple of weeks, and then I get them and then process them out and all of that. But like I said, it's near the end of the semester is when it starts to get like, okay, I need this stuff from you for the ICWSP grant. For the EDI grant, that's on the student. You don't even gotta worry about it. So yeah.
Pat, your question about other timelines, you know, when do when should we be hiring? When do students have to know they need an internship to tell their department? Such a great question. Definitely one of those, it varies by department. And I know that's not a great answer. We, in our office, we oversee the Civic Engagement minor. And so those students have to do an internship. So we have set some hard and fast timelines. If you want to do an internship in the summer, we need to know by April 15th. I think if you want to do an internship in the spring, I think we say November 15th. So we give the students about 6 to 8 weeks before the semester starts. But it is really going to vary from folks. I'm thinking particularly of social work that has a lot more structure, that they may have a much earlier deadline, but they also have a lot of support to help those students do that. And you may also find some students that, let's see, we're going in the summer and course registration is starting right now. And so you may have students who are like, oh, maybe I'll think about doing an internship in the summer or the fall. And they have just started as they pick their courses, right? And so it's dependent on the student, it's dependent on the department. It really varies. Jess, I see you unmuted. Please share your expertise.
So because I love Pat, I'm going to give her a heads here. So I would say that if you're looking at it, Pat, too, you're going to look at what's the last time that you can do it with the student, right? When's the sort of the drop dead? When can they no longer? And think about registration. So if they're going to be registering for this as a transcript thing, right? If they're doing it for spring, for example, well, registration is going to end in January, right? So if you kind of think about that, when's the last possible time that they can register for a class? And there's a little bit of flexibility in there, but really that would kind of give you like, that's the last possible time to be able to get it into the system that ISU might need, right? So that would be January for spring, August for fall, and summer probably around mid-May-ish to get in there. Did that help?
Thank you, Jess. I really appreciate that. Seeing as it's 12:05, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. You can see on the screen all of our email addresses, and I will follow up as well after this session to make sure folks have all that information. But if you had a question that wasn't able to get answered, please just go ahead and email us, and we are glad to support you in your recruiting, and your designing, and your writing of the description, and in your supervision of students. So thank you so much in advance for all of you playing that co-educator role. And thank you to Megan and Mariaton, who are our career services experts and shared all of their knowledge with us today. So thank you all very much and have a great week.